There is a creature living on your face right now. Not in the metaphorical sense that microorganisms colonize human skin, which they do, and not in the general sense that dust mites inhabit the fabric surfaces of the spaces you occupy, which they also do, in the literal sense. There is an animal with a body, with legs, with a mouth, living in the follicles of your face at this exact moment, almost certainly including the follicles of your eyelashes, your nose, and the skin of your cheeks and forehead. It has been there since you were a young child. It will be there for the rest of your life. It is living on the sebum your skin produces, feeding in the follicle, reproducing inside it. And it has been doing this in the follicles of human beings since before our species had the anatomy we currently recognize as a face. It is called Demodex, and it is the most intimate companion the human body has, and almost nobody knows it is there. Today we are going to look at Demodex properly. We are going to find out what it is doing in your follicles, how it got there, what happens when its population goes out of balance, and why the relationship between Demodex and the human skin it inhabits is one of the most extraordinary and most thoroughly misunderstood examples of parasitism and mutualism existing simultaneously in the same organism. By the end, I think you will understand why dermatologists and evolutionary biologists who study Demodex describe it as one of the most successful colonizers of vertebrate skin in the history of animal life, and why the fact that you have been completely unaware of its presence on your face is, in most cases, a sign that everything is working exactly as it should. Let us start with what Demodex actually is, because the answer is more surprising than most people expect once they encounter it for the first time. Demodex is an arachnid, not an insect. An arachnid, a relative, however distant, of spiders and ticks and scorpions, with 8 legs in its adult form and a body that has been so thoroughly adapted to life inside a human hair follicle that it barely resembles anything you would recognize as belonging to that group. The adult Demodex folliculorum, the species that lives primarily in the hair follicles of the face, measures approximately 0.3 to 0.4 millimeters in length. It is the approximate size of a grain of fine sand. Its body is elongated, semi-transparent, and tapered at the posterior end. Its 8 legs are clustered at the front third of its body, beneath the capitulum, the mouth-bearing anterior structure, which is equipped with chelicerae that it uses to feed on the follicular cells and sebum within the follicle. A second species, Demodex brevis, is slightly shorter and lives deeper in the sebaceous glands themselves rather than in the follicle shaft. Both species are present in most adult humans. Both are, under normal circumstances, entirely asymptomatic. The population density of Demodex on human skin varies considerably between individuals and across different regions of the face. But studies of skin samples and standardized adhesive tape strips have consistently found Demodex in the follicles of between 90 and 100% of adult humans examined. The prevalence is so high that dermatologists now treat the complete absence of Demodex as an unusual finding rather than its presence. You have them. The question has never been whether you have them, but how many, and whether your skin's ecology is maintaining a balance that keeps the population below the threshold at which it becomes symptomatic. Demodex arrived on your skin through direct skin-to-skin contact with another person who carried it, almost certainly in early childhood. The primary transmission route is contact with the skin of a parent or primary caregiver, and colonization typically occurs in infancy and early childhood when the skin-to-skin contact that characterizes early caregiving provides repeated opportunity for transfer. The mite cannot survive for long off the host's skin surface. It desiccates rapidly in open air and does not move between hosts through bedding, clothing, or surfaces in the way that some other ectoparasites do. The Demodex on your face came from a person who loved you and held you close, and it has been with you ever since. Now here is the part that will matter most to you as someone who has just been told they have a permanent population of 8-legged arachnids living in their facial follicles. In the vast majority of people, Demodex causes nothing, no itch, no inflammation, no visible symptom of any kind. The mite feeds on sebum and follicular material, reproduces slowly, keeps its population within a range that the skin's immune surveillance manages without any apparent difficulty, and dies within the follicle, where its body is broken down by the same processes that handle other cellular debris. It is, by most functional definitions, invisible to the host. The reason it is invisible is not that it is small, although it is. The reason it is invisible is that, over the extraordinarily long period during which Demodex and the ancestors of modern humans have been cohabiting, the immune system has developed a specific tolerance for the mite's presence that prevents the inflammatory response that would otherwise accompany the presence of a foreign organism in a skin follicle. Demodex is not hiding from your immune system. Your immune system has learned to accept it. The tolerance is so thorough that when immunologists study Demodex, they consistently find that healthy skin shows almost no immune response to the mite whatsoever, even at moderate population densities. The feeding behavior is where the biology becomes genuinely interesting. Demodex feeds in two ways depending on the species and the life stage. Demodex follicularum uses its chelicerae to scrape and consume the cells lining the follicle wall and the sebum produced by the associated sebaceous gland. In doing so, it acts, in a limited but real sense, as a cleaner of the follicle interior. Demodex brevis feeds more directly on the cells of the sebaceous gland itself. Both species digest their food externally, secreting digestive enzymes onto the material they are consuming before absorbing the pre-digested nutrients. The feeding process is slow and continuous, happening over the entire lifespan of the mite, which runs to several weeks within the follicle. The mite does not have an anus. It cannot excrete waste products during its lifetime. All the material it cannot use accumulates inside its body, and when the mite dies, its body remains inside the follicle and is broken down in situ. Let that settle for a moment. Inside the follicle of your eyelash, right now, there is almost certainly a Demodex mite that has never left that follicle, that has been feeding on the cells and sebum within it for several weeks, that cannot excrete waste, and that will die in the follicle and decompose there. It is one of the most intimate biological relationships the human body maintains with any other organism, and it is happening simultaneously across thousands of follicles on your face, in the dark, without any signal from your skin that anything unusual is occurring. The balance shifts when it goes wrong, and understanding when and why it goes wrong gives you the most useful practical information about what Demodex actually means for your skin. Demodicosis, the clinical condition associated with Demodex overpopulation, occurs when the mite's population density exceeds the threshold that the skin's immune regulation can manage asymptomatically. This happens most commonly in three contexts. The first is immunosuppression, when the immune system is significantly compromised either by disease, by medication, or by age-related immune decline. The specific tolerance mechanism that keeps Demodex populations in check loses effectiveness, and the mite population can expand to densities that trigger inflammatory responses. Rosacea has a documented association with elevated Demodex density, and researchers have found Demodex counts in rosacea-affected skin consistently higher than in unaffected control skin, with some studies finding counts 5 to 10 times higher in affected areas. The precise nature of the relationship is still being investigated. The question of whether elevated Demodex density is a cause or a consequence of the rosacea inflammatory process has not been definitively settled, but the association is robust and clinically significant. The second context is certain skin conditions that alter sebum production or follicle structure in ways that create more favorable habitat for the mite. The third is topical steroid use over an extended period, which can suppress the local immune response enough to allow Demodex populations to expand in the treated area. Symptoms of demodicosis include itching that is characteristically worse in the morning and in warmer temperatures, a sensation of crawling on the skin, redness, scaling, and in some cases a specific pattern of eyelid irritation called Demodex blepharitis. in which the mite population in the eyelash follicles produces inflammation of the lid margin. This last condition is more common than most people realize and is frequently underdiagnosed, with patients presenting repeatedly for treatment of persistent eyelid irritation without the underlying Demodex infestation being identified as the cause. So what should you do about the Demodex on your face? In the overwhelming majority of cases, nothing. The mite is present, the population is within a normal range, your immune system is managing it without difficulty, and you have been cohabiting with it successfully since childhood. The appropriate response to learning that Demodex exists is not to try to eliminate it from your skin. A project that would require treatments with significant side effects and would not result in permanent eradication in any case, but to understand that its presence is the normal state, and that any deviation from the invisible and asymptomatic normal state is worth taking seriously as a signal about what else is changing in your skin's ecology. If you are experiencing persistent unexplained facial itching, particularly morning itching that is worse around the eyes and nose, persistent eyelid irritation that has not responded to standard treatments, or a rosacea diagnosis that is not responding to standard management, it is worth asking your dermatologist specifically about Demodex, because the question is not always asked and the mite population is not always measured. Treatment options for symptomatic demodicosis exist and are effective. Topical ivermectin has demonstrated efficacy in reducing Demodex populations. Tea tree oil-based treatments at appropriate concentrations have demonstrated efficacy for Demodex blepharitis. Azelaic acid, which is used in rosacea management, has some action against Demodex. These are interventions for symptomatic conditions, not preventive treatments for the normal state. What you should not do is attempt to scrub, strip, or chemically treat your skin in pursuit of Demodex elimination as a routine hygiene measure. The mite lives inside the follicle, below the surface that cleansers and toners reach, and aggressive surface treatment does not significantly affect the follicular population while potentially disrupting the skin barrier in ways that create better conditions for the mite to proliferate rather than fewer. The skin's own biology, its sebum production, its immune surveillance, its follicular structure, is considerably better at managing Demodex than any surface intervention you can apply to it. Demodex folliculorum has been with the human lineage for longer than we have been anatomically modern humans. Evolutionary studies of the mite's genetics have found that Demodex lineages from different human populations show patterns of divergence that correspond to the ancient migration patterns of the human populations they inhabit, suggesting that the mite has been co-evolving with our lineage for hundreds of thousands of years, traveling with us as we moved across continents, diversifying as our populations diverged, and arriving in the Americas with the first human migrations across the Bering Land Bridge. The Demodex on your face is not an invader. It is not a contamination. It is an ancient traveling companion, one of the longest standing relationships the human body maintains with any other organism, and the fact that you are only now hearing about it says more about human discomfort with the idea of sharing a face than it does about the biology of an arrangement that has been working without incident for several 100,000 years. Have you ever thought about the Demodex on your face, or changed how you think about your skin after learning this? Tell me about it in the comments. I read every single one, and this is exactly the kind of story this community was built for. And if you want to understand another creature sharing your body or your home in ways that have been hidden from you until now, the next video is already waiting for you.